We are counting down the top 10 matches in Summerslam history and have cracked the top 5 at long last. This week, number 5 in the countdown takes us back a few years to Summerslam 2016 at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and what may be the best match in a series of matches that year and into the next between John Cena and AJ Styles. This is already John Cena's third time appearing on this list, and we still have 4 more matches to go after this. Cena also appeared 3 times in my list of the top 10 greatest title matches in Royal Rumble history, and one of those matches was his match with AJ at the Alamo Dome for the year after this match took place, where he won his 16th world title. I like this match more than that one, and I feel that this is their best singles match together. And I had the great fortune of being in the building for it, and it was an incredible atmosphere. Now, AJ Styles had quite the debut year for himself in WWE in 2016, better than anybody could have expected, considering his past with TNA, which for a time, WWE wasn't even signing anybody whose contracts were expiring with TNA. It was almost like they were poison. They were persona non grata. We're not taking in anybody from TNA, anybody with those initials, anybody with that stain on them. It was like a stain to WWE for whatever reason. Of course, that didn't last long, thankfully, because that's how we got Samoa Joe and AJ and a few other people. But think about the year that he had, debuting at the Royal Rumble. Big debut at the Royal Rumble. He had formed a tag team for a while with Chris Jericho before there was a turn. They had a match at WrestleMania. He lost, but he had a pretty prominent match at WrestleMania with Chris Jericho, his first WrestleMania. He wrestled Roman Reigns in back-to-back pay-per-view main events for the WWE Championship. There was a heel turn, the formation of the club with Anderson and Gallows, and then a series of matches with John Cena, top star in the company, culminating with him winning his first WWE title in September from Dean Ambrose at Backlash. And that all happened from January, the end of January, until probably the early to middle portion of September. That's a pretty damn good debut year, especially for somebody coming in from a company that was, again, poison for WWE. I have no idea why. It all seems so stupid to me now, looking back. It seemed stupid to me then, too, not just now. Because there were a lot of talented people in TNA. Whatever you may have thought of the company and their storylines and the behind-the-scenes nonsense and LOL TNA and all that, it wasn't AJ's fault. It wasn't Joe's fault. It wasn't Eric Young's fault. Bobby Roode, James Storm, or any of them. So AJ went heel, and he and Anderson and Gallows were doing the whole beat-up John Cena thing for a while, where they would quite literally go out on TV and they would beat up John Cena. And the people loved it. The people would cheer. So AJ had his first singles match with Cena, not here on this show, but they had their first singles match in June at Money in the Bank, a match that had interference by Anderson and Gallows, which led to AJ winning. So he got a big win, but it was tainted, right? He had a little bit of help. Then there was a tag team match that they were on opposite sides for at what I believe was the Battleground pay-per-view in July, and Cena won that match. And so going into that first match that they had at Money in the Bank, the announcers kept referring to it, they kept referring to it as a dream match. AJ Styles against John Cena. It's a dream match, a match that you never would have expected would happen. This right here at SummerSlam, this I think is the match more so than the one at Money in the Bank that lived up to that billing. And the Money in the Bank match was great too, but this was not, I would not rank this below that. I would rank this above that. This was the embodiment of what I think you would want and expect from a so-called dream match between these two guys. You had Mauro Ranallo on commentary. I had almost forgotten his entire stint on the main roster. Whatever the hell happened there. So he was on commentary for the match. Hot crowd, dueling chants to start. As somebody who was there, I can say, make no mistake, this was a crowd that wanted to see AJ Styles win this match. I don't care how divided, when you go back and you listen and you watch, how divided the reaction seems. This was a very pro AJ Styles and very anti-John Cena crowd. And Styles gave Cena a suplex on the apron, which, in case you forgot, in case you didn't know, is the hardest part of the ring. You know how I know that? Because they kept telling us. Not just on this show, but like all the time. Even after all these years, they always see fit to remind us that it's the hardest part of the ring. We had Cena kicking out of a Styles Clash, AJ kicking out of an Attitude Adjustment, spinning Torture Rack powerbomb by AJ for a 2 count, springboard 450 by AJ, missed the mark. Cena hits a Code Red, but only for 2. Indie wrestling John Cena was always funny to me. You know, sometimes he'd hit something that looked great. He'd do like a big Rana or some kind of move that you would never expect to see John Cena do, or that you'd know he was in the ring earlier that day just rehearsing and practicing and hoping to nail it. And sometimes he would, and sometimes it would look great, and then other times he would try something and it would look like total shit. But at least he would try. At least he took the whole 5 moves of doom or 6 moves of doom in stride, and he tried to add to his arsenal. I at least give him credit for trying new things. So there's an STF by Cena, which gets countered. Calf Crusher by AJ is countered, back into the STF. Tit for tat, back and forth. Tornado DDT off the ropes by Cena for another near fall. Top rope Rana by AJ takes Cena down to the mat. AJ hits the phenomenal forearm, but only gets a 2 count. Top rope avalanche attitude adjustment by John Cena off the middle rope on the inside. Again, only good for a 2 count. Now, if you are the kind of person who hates finisher spam, you probably do not like this match, because there was a lot of that here. This match did have a lot of that. But I thought it worked. It worked for me. Because I'm also not a huge fan of that, but in certain situations, if it's not just finisher spam, if they're telling a good story, if there's other, moves, if there's other things being done, it's not just spot, then I'm okay with that. It wasn't just finisher spam. They mixed in other things here, but the story was that you had 2 guys, evenly matched, throwing everything they could at each other. And Cena at one point had this very weird look on his face, like he couldn't believe it or he was constipated or something. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do to put this man down. He could not finish AJ Styles no matter what he did. So up he went again for the AA. Styles countered into a Styles Clash. Crawled onto the apron, hit the springboard into the phenomenal forearm one more time, and 3 seconds later, AJ Styles was your winner. AJ Styles. AJ Styles, the TNA guy. Yeah, he was also the New Japan guy. He won the IWGP title. But like Sting was the franchise of WCW for so many years, you could argue that AJ Styles was the same thing for TNA. Some people might say Abyss. You can name a few other people, but to me, AJ Styles, he was the franchise player for TNA in the way that Sting was for WCW. He was the heart and soul of that company, one of the lasting originals. And to think that Mr. TNA, in his first year in WWE, would pin John Cena clean at SummerSlam was something I never would have predicted. And this is exactly what I tweeted from my seat that night as soon as the match was over. I wrote this in all caps. Amazing. They did the right thing. That's all I said. They did the right thing. That was exactly what was going through my head at that moment. I can't believe they actually did the right thing for a change. It was the correct outcome. There was no fluke. There was no injury. Even when Cena got beat by Bryan, the other match I had in this countdown, at SummerSlam in 2013, that was a clean win too, but there were people who would disagree with me and say, well, wait a minute. It wasn't exactly clean because Cena had a brace on his arm, which of course he did. He had a fucking injury. But, they were playing up the arm injury. He was calling the doctor over. And, of course, Bryan got the win, but it was against the Cena that was only at like 70% or 80%. Shut up. Clean win is a clean win. You didn't have that here. There was no injury distraction. There was nothing. There was no Anderson and Gallows. This was straight up one-on-one. And AJ beat Cena as clean as anybody could possibly beat this man. And it was the moment, and he did it as a heel, which is why I kind of bring this up, because it's just so unlike what you would see in WWE. It's happened before. Kevin Owens did it, but it's very rare. And it was the moment I think that AJ Styles arrived as a true main event player in WWE. So Cena left his armband in the ring. He walked off looking all depressed and dejected. AJ, he would go on to win the WWE title the very next month from Dean Ambrose, and then successfully defend the championship against Ambrose and Cena in the opening match at the No Mercy pay-per-view in October. Yes, they curtain jerked the pay-per-view for the WWE title because, for those who don't remember, that pay-per-view aired the very same night as the second presidential debate. And they wanted to make sure that people saw that title match and didn't tune out and miss it. And guess what? Styles pinned Cena again. They could have easily had him pin Ambrose, since it was a triple threat match, but they didn't. He pinned John Cena. That's when Cena took a few months off. He went to go film his American Grit TV show. Then he came back to pick things up with AJ, and yes, he got his win back. He beat AJ at the Rumble. He won his 16th world title. But this was the match where AJ arrived as a true main event player, a true headliner in WWE. And you could see the trust that they put in this guy. And when I look back at that first year, I don't know too many people who would have predicted he would have had the kind of success, would have been allowed to have the kind of success that he had. But he showed them, hey, look, I can be a player for you. I think Vince McMahon even made a comment at one point to AJ behind the scenes. I wish I would have had you 10 years ago. This guy could have been the Shawn Michaels of WWE of the more modern era, the closest thing. Closest thing they would have had to a Shawn Michaels on their roster, other than Shawn himself, who was, 10 years ago he was still around. But that was Vince McMahon's, that's the best compliment he could have possibly paid to him. Where have you been? I wish I would have had you on my roster a decade ago. I think a lot of people feel the same way. Then we would have been spared the whole Claire Lynch fiasco.